Good evening. So, tomorrow is the interlocutory hearing at the High Court. I believe it's in courtroom 2 in Canberra, and it is before the Chief Justice, who has quite an odd name. His name is Gagala, and he is the boss of the bosses. He is like the top dog of the High Court, and his forte is constitutional law. He is an expert on the implied right to political communication and also on I guess you could call it the restricting of executive powers. And he's written extensively on prescription and what powers, different executive officers have. So this is the most highly respected judge in Australia for a very, very long time. Um, he has the most extensive knowledge on what the Constitution means, and he has the most extensive interpretation on what the Constitution means in terms of implied political freedoms. And he is personally going to hear the interlocutory. So that's really good news. Whatever judgment we receive, or I receive, I'm the plaintiff, and obviously the interlocutory is about securing the legal protection for the White Australia Party to exist as a political party. And it's also to put forward the damage that the Commonwealth, or the current government that represents the Commonwealth, to represent to put forward the damage that the government has done to not just the democracy as a whole and trust in the government and the system, but the specific damage it's done in terms of intimidating its political opponents. And so, just a brief, well, probably not brief, but a rough understanding of the arguments that are being made is that, one, we have the implied right to political communication in this country. It's been established throughout loads of case law. There's another Chief Justice, sorry, not a Chief Justice, there's another Justice on the High Court called Gleeson, who's also written extensively about the implied right of communication. She's not hearing the case, but she's written extensively about it as well, and said very positive things, basically saying that it doesn't matter whether you're offended, it doesn't matter whether it's aggressive language or even abusive language, it can't be considered criminal. And there's a lot of magistrates that need to read the Gleeson case law because the magistrates just make it up as they go along. But we're not at the magistrates; we're at the High Court, which is the supreme of the Supreme Courts. This is a very, very historically important moment. The actual judgment on whether the White Australia Party is legal or not will be decided in September. But the judgment tomorrow will decide whether it has sort of, I guess, immunity from the law, and the law is effectively on pause. The legislation is effectively on pause until September. Now, the primary issues with the legislation is not just that we have the implied right to political communication, but also it's about separation of powers. You see, the way that the Australian Constitution and constitutional monarchy is set up is that we have a sovereign, we have a head of state, and that's the King of England, technically. And they have like an agent that, kind of keeps an eye on us, and that's the Governor General. And then we have a Prime Minister, which is meant to be the minister the other ministers elect to be the Prime Speaker. And the Prime Speaker, the Prime Minister, he forms government. So he assigns roles from other ministers. He has to pick other ministers, and these people form government. And what that means is they have executive powers. So they have like the Home Affairs Minister, the Defense Minister, the Health Minister. These people can exercise basically dictatorial powers over their sphere. They don't have total control of the country. As a team, they do. But it's about a breakdown and a separation of powers depending on what the task is. And so it's actually a very, very good system. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but it's a very, very good system. To make sure that you don't have some communist freak subvert the institution and try and destroy the country. The problem is when communist freaks work in like a really big team and they subvert the Labor Party all the way back in the 80s and 90s, like Tony Burke and Anthony Albanese have done. And you basically just slowly bide your time and grind down the democracy one legislation at a time. the advantage of the separation of judicial powers from the government or the executive powers is that the courts have to be kept separate from the government. The courts and the government are not the same thing. The High Court is a separate institution, and it is filled with people, whether you like them or not, it is filled with people that have dedicated their entire life to studying law. And so it's an important institution, it's an important office, and it separates punishment and judgment of criminal offenses from government. And there's multiple reasons for this, but the main one is so that the government cannot prosecute its own political opponents. So there's a whole bunch of separations of power. The government can't prosecute the parliament, and it can't tell the public what their political opinions are to be. It can encourage particular opinions, but it can't say, no, you're not allowed to believe that. That's not right. Now, obviously, they've breached this, and they breach it over and over again, and it's very repetitive, the nature of subversion and sabotage and how they've behaved. And currently, the criminal code isn't being used against them, nor is the criminal code being used against journalists that are harassing myself and harassing World War II war widows and harassing local business owners that are, within a 10-kilometer radius of where I live. And so these questions that I've been getting from this absolute vermin rodent, Matt Martino, who is most likely a homosexual freak and probably a sex offender, these questions come at a time of the most absolutely, crucial, legal, historical moment for the liberal democracy in Australia. And he's asking me about, as I said, war veterans, the widows of war veterans, and asking me about small business owners that are in and around the Diamond Creek area. And I guess my only response to that is, you're not actually ethical. You're not reporting the news. You're obviously a parasite at the ABC. But the real news story here is the importance of beating this legislation, or at least the importance of exposing the issues with this legislation. And the primary issue with the legislation, other than political communication, other than encroaching on, the right for Australians to have a political party, there's a very serious issue with Matt Martino's bum buddy, Tony Burke, being judge, jury, and executioner, and being able to punitively damage people that he doesn't personally like. And that's too much discretional power for a homosexual that subverted his way into political office. And so the judiciary, the High Court, are going to have to decide as to whether the current Home Affairs Minister, but not just the current one, the next one, and the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that, has the ability to shut down political parties because they say things that person personally disagrees with. So it is a critical moment for Australia's existence, really. And you've got parasites like Matt Martino asking the really important questions, like what's my relationship with a World War II war widow? And do I attend a boxing gym and crap like this? So again, I think it's pretty clear that these freak homosexual parasites are trying to run cover for the fact that the government has made a serious mistake in passing this legislation. And not just the government, but the parliament, all the elected people, including a lot of members of the Liberal Party. They made a huge mistake passing this legislation against Australia's interests. And it's clearly an anti-white legislation. That's the real story. So anyway, that's my response. Matt Martino, you're a parasite. You're a freak. You're a rodent. And at some point in the future, I can guess that the criminal code is going to be used against you. So good luck with your article, bro. I'll see the rest of you in the future. Have a nice day.